It sure has been a long time ago, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. The story of a maid with selfless devotion, and the faith that I had in her being crushed to the point of there being nothing left afterwards. It begins with her introducing herself to us. She had a lot of qualities I liked in a girl back then. Smart, selfless, caring, elegant, beautiful. I will admit that, back in the day, I had a bit of a crush on her, always showing interest in her, wanting to learn more about her, expecting greatness out of her, witnessing how she would be challenged in the future trials, and seeing her survive. But deep down, I knew it from the beginning that all of that would never happen, because I saw it. I had visions of her inevitable death. Spoilers, if you will. And with the killing game continuing on as it did, my visions became more and more clear to me. And the dreaded day when I would witness her execution has come. At first, I knew that I would end up sad that someone who I had a huge respect for would end up kicking the bucket. But in the end, it wasn't sadness that overwhelmed me, but betrayal and disappointment. Even with the huge spirit she had for fighting till the end for her life in the trial, I couldn't face her. Not when she had killed Ryoma, when she had disgustingly used Himiko's magic show to frame her for murder, and to spit on Kaede's grave by using her words against Shuichi, just so that she can survive. Because of that, when she had tried to run from her execution and escape, when everyone was cheering for her to run and survive, I couldn't raise my voice. I knew that she would die, that there was no escape, and my faith in her completely shattered into a million pieces. From that day onward, I continued doing whatever I could to help the rest of the students survive, without thinking too much on the past. But a part of me still keeps thinking to this day of what it could have been if she didn't fall in the spider's web. So yeah, I cannot say that I like Kirumi nowadays as much as I did back then on a personal level. I did have high expectations of her, of where her character would go, of how her initially almost flawless characterization would end up being challenged by the writers. Similar to how I felt about Kaede in terms of where the writers could have gone with her character if she survived till the end. Except in Kaede's case, they ended up creating a beautifully written character with her death, being as early as chapter 1, whereas in Kirumi's case, it does seem to have made a bad impact on the fanbase from what I am noticing. Chapter 2 was indeed a sad chapter for me in the sense that 2 out of 3 characters that I had high hopes for the development that I wanted, died earlier than I would have hoped. And that is Kirumi and Ryoma, leaving Himiko the only one at that point where I was scared of her dying as well in the future and wanting her to grow and survive. And, well, we all know how that one ended, with her surviving and managing to impress me as a character more than I could have ever imagined actually. So take that, those of you who thought that there was no way for her to survive. Nyeh. But all this stuff that I said about Kirumi is on a personal level. So let's see about looking at her from an objective, more critical lens and see what we have here. First off, the good stuff. Her design and presentation. Simply put, her design is among one of my favorites for the girls in V3. Like, hell, probably the whole series even. Like, the dress, the hairstyle, her mannerisms, her voice. I believe they did a really good job in making her look really dignified, and therefore quite attractive in many people's eyes, without the need of sexualizing her clothes to appeal to everyone. Yes, I'm looking at you, Mew. You should probably take some notes on this. I mean, she even rivals Sonia in that department, in the sense that she as well was designed like an actual princess who looks really dignified, and is quite an eye candy to a lot of people without having to overly sexualize her clothes or anything like that. Her spiderweb pattern on her dress also symbolizes her manipulative techniques during her trial as well, which is a cool bonus point. The second point is her execution, and how it is done in a similar fashion to the spider's Fred folktale, which I've heard about, which is a short story written by Ryunosuke Akutagawa in the early 1900s, where it tells the story of Kandata, one who had a shot at escaping hell and being welcomed in paradise by the Buddha Shakyamuni for his good deed of not killing a spider one day. Shakyamuni lowered the spider thread all the way down to hell so that Kandata can climb it. However, other sinners from hell started climbing the thread as well, and because it was about to break due to so many people climbing it, Kandata shouted that it was his and his thread alone. The thread then broke, and thus Kandata and the rest of the sinners fell into the pool of blood. I find this to be an interesting parallel. Like, in Kirumi's case, she had her shot at trying to escape because of her motive to save the country, but because she was selfish enough to commit the murder and doom the other students by manipulating them, i.e. Kandata shouting at the other sinners to get off the rope. Her mission to escape has ended in failure, as not only was she found, but the rope also breaks and she falls to her death. The themes. More specifically, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. This is a saying that has been debated for as long as time itself. I always want to think that there is a way to save everyone without having to sacrifice someone, which is one of the reasons why I was so mad at Kokichi during the killing game. The end justify the means is something that I have always been opposed to. Like, best example I could offer is this old fart over here, who created a killing game out of all things, to complete his mission where I could think of millions and millions of other ways he could have done what he did, without the need of killing anyone. And even if I disagree with this ideology, it still is presented as an interesting debate that can be discussed when it comes to Kirumi's situation, and in Danganronpa in general. And I think it did a good job in reminding us of what a situation like this could entail. Kirumi, the greatest politician? Undoubtedly, if there is one thing that a person can latch onto when it comes to Kirumi, it is her climactic moments during the trial, which is in contrast with the way we see Kirumi till then. Like, despite the whole Prime Minister motive coming out of nowhere, I have no doubt that she probably would become a good one due to her being supermade. But because of how manipulative and ruthless she was in her last moments, it's not far-fetched to think of her as quite dictatorial as well, or the type who would also be corrupt. More specifically, in the way she sees herself as important and wanting to escape so that she can save the country, which, again, goes back to what we talked about before when it comes to the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few. Thinking that she is the only person who would be able to do this. Because if she didn't think of it that way, she wouldn't have done what she did, and she would have thought that someone else is more fitting of saving the country if somebody else were there outside the killing game. And she tries to do all this in such brutal ways, like pissing on Kaede's grave to save herself, manipulating everyone's feelings while also throwing them under the bus. It is quite Machiavellian, and I think this is the best word to describe Kirumi in this case. Machiavellian, both as a student and as a possible political figure / corrupt dictator. While I am really not a fan of what she did on a personal level, I'd say that this is the most interesting part about Kirumi that can be discussed by people who are fans of that side of her. Also, not to mention that she's among the few who, instead of accepting their defeat, she keeps going and going till her death. Kaede accepts her death with tears, Kurokku accepts his death, Gonta accepts his death, Kaito, Mondo, Celeste, Sakura. Danganronpa almost always tries to paint most of the killers in a good light, in the sense that even if they did what they did it because they were human, not because they were completely selfish. I guess one of the faults in Kirumi's motive behind the kill is that it wasn't executed well enough for us to still root for Kirumi, even if she did what she did. I mean, everyone was cheering at the end of her trial to run and survive. But on the flip side, the fanbase has seen Kirumi as this really selfish person that did it all for herself, because of how she manipulated everyone. And because her motive just came out of nowhere, if I am being honest. And because it came in so late, without ever tying into Kirumi, ever showing any struggles in the past, or foreshadowing this particular motive, it never really gave enough time for people to try to sympathize with her. and it can drop people's investment in her in an instant. Alright, well, I guess with that point I made, I already bled into the problems section of Kirumi's character, so let's start with what I don't really like about Kirumi / things that I find meh about her. First, her personality. And to put it bluntly, she is extremely one-noted, in the sense that all of her actions, motivations, whatever she's saying, it all connects to her talent, to her serving others, to her selfless devotion. And yeah, that pretty much includes her climactic moments in her trial as well. I mean, what do we know about Kirumi in terms of personality? That she's calm, collected, and smart. It kind of makes you think of other students with similar traits, like say, Kyoko. However, what makes Kyoko more interesting is that, outside of her being tied heavily to her talent, she is also confronted with problems of not being able to trust people as well early in the first Danganronpa. In time, she grows out of that and starts being more emotional in some situations, and trusting her friends more and more, while also being the calm, collected, smart woman that she is, thus making her more human. Kirumi really has no flaw. Like, instead, she's painted as this super maid all the time. Especially in her free time events, which accentuates the problem by showing us that she's even more of a super maid, instead of giving us information about why she decided to become a maid, like why she's so devoted to helping people, stuff like that. Her free time events consist of her outstanding accomplishments, ranging from cooking, cleaning, helping important people, destroying Metal Gears, like etc. And while there are some little moments there, like how she feels that it was her fault one of her masters ended up really lazy and couldn't do anything, that she feels like she only thought of her own actions and neglected her master's feelings, this doesn't really give me anything to work with at all, because she also says that it is from this experience where her principle of selfless devotion stemmed from. So, in a way, this mistake of hers from the past has made her even more of a super maid that tries even harder to be a maid, and thus we only see this as a maid mistake, not a human mistake. But wait! She has one weakness that she cannot beat. Cognac! No, not the alcohol, the little thing that she cannot cut with her knife and such. You know how interesting it would have been if she did have alcohol problems? I mean, that has to stem from some deep-rooted problems that doesn't have to do with her maid duty. I mean, even in her free time event, when she made that joke of having Shuichi pay way too much for her services is a bit weird for me. I mean, I still do consider this one of Kirumi's cutest moments, but it's still something that ties to her role as a maid because, well, she said it herself that humor is needed from a maid to calm their master. For her, she would tell jokes to her master. Thus, she made that joke as part of her maid duty, not because she wants to make friends with Shuichi since, at this point in time, she sees him as a potential master, not as a potential new friend. And that is one of the problems I have with Kirumi at this point in time, that she doesn't feel that human to me. I mean, let's think about this, folks. At the end of the day, they're still a bunch of teenagers. I mean, granted, Kirumi does look like she's among the most mature girls in the cast, and does look like she's in her 20s. But she is still a teenager, and part of being a teenager is making friends, not spend like 100% of your time working a job or something. And it's not like I'm saying that it's not possible for Kirumi to just take it easy and make friends, for her to start having fun doing unrelated stuff that are not tied to her maid role. Because even if she sees Shuichi as a potential master, it is very possible for Shuichi to try and make her feel like less of a maid and more of a friend if they started working together. But the thing is, I don't work with what is, I work with what I got. And what I got isn't exactly satisfactory in Kirumi's case. Because as it stands, her pride gets in the way of her showing a more human side of her. There is one analogy I read somewhere on Reddit when it comes to her talent. It was something along the lines of, if there is one student in a cast that is truly the ultimate robot, it is not Kibo, it is Kirumi. I mean, think about it. Robots exist to fulfill any requests given to them to the best of their abilities, which is exactly the same role that Kirumi has as a robot. As a maid, sorry. Wow. That wasn't even in the script. But in Kibo's case, he has proven himself even from his introduction that he is quite human. He has credible feelings, and when he is helpful, he also has his own motivations and desires that aren't bound by any rules such as, I am a robot, therefore I must serve type of thing. I mean, if somebody asks him to do something, he can just say, oh sure, have me clean up the room cause I'm a robot, that's what you want, eh? To be your Roomba. Bitch, you ain't getting any of my help. But anyway, while I do have different views now when it comes to her personality, she still is a nice and caring person at the end of the day. The murder case of Ryoma Hoshi happened because she was given her motive, which pushed her to do what she did, but excluding the murder case, she always did what she could for the students, and that is still something that I really like about her, even to this day. Because even if we don't learn about why she became a maid, and all we got is her describing her feats in the past, in some aspects her character is one that tells me that you don't need to have an ulterior motive for helping / serving people. She does what she does because that is how she raised herself to be. It has become like an automatism at this point, and it's not something that everyone has. It's admirable. However, do I find her character interesting because of just that? Not really. One last thing that I want to discuss about her is the premise behind her character, which is being a motherly character that earns the trust of her students, followed by manipulating said trust in the trial. This is something that a lot of people debated about, and the general consensus is that it's rushed, and yeah, I can totally see that. Like, in order for Kirumi's last moments, or any case like this in general, to be impactful to the fanbase and the students, both parties need to be emotionally attached to Kirumi or anybody else in this similar situation. Let's start first with the students' side. Here, I don't think they really showed enough in the first 2 chapters to make it seem like the students really depended on Kirumi in the mother type role, or that they got emotionally attached to her over time. Like, the closest that I can think of is when everyone was barraging her with requests at some point. Like, I don't know exactly when that happened, but I do remember that I commented about it back then, and how everyone was doing that all of a sudden. Long story short, it doesn't feel organic. On the player side, we ourselves are supposed to get emotionally attached to Kirumi for caring to the other students, which will end in the player feeling surprised and betrayed that someone so caring like her would do such a thing. In my case, well, as you all know, I already got spoiled of her being the one that got executed in chapter 2 way before I started V3. So the shock element of the reveal that she did it sadly wasn't there. I knew that I was gonna get betrayed, but the sort of betrayal that I had was different. Like, I don't know how to explain this well, but as I said, I had high expectations of her. I wanted her to survive, to see her character, her ideology being challenged. While I did feel betrayal, I didn't feel quite sad, but rather let down or disappointed because of how he chose her selfless devotion / maid duty above the students. This tells me that she had no emotional attachment to the students in the end. Thus, it should make it harder for the students to get emotionally attached to Kirumi in such a situation. Thus, it would make it harder for the player to be that way too. Because, to quote a high philosopher whose name I forgot, if a character / story / writer doesn't give a fuck, why should we? Alright, well, there are a bunch of other stuff, like how her murder case was done, which wasn't really the smartest one in terms of its execution, but I think that is about enough for now. In the end, I wouldn't say that Kirumi is a character that really wows me that much anymore the way it was at the beginning. There are good points, there are bad points, and for the most part, her bad points are the ones in the front row more than the good points. There may be some other stuff that I missed, but generally this is how I felt about Kirumi and what I got out of her. With that being said, I'm gonna give Kirumi the neutral heart. It is interesting how a character that I thought would end up being one of my favorites has me feeling meh in the end. I guess... Okay. There is something else that I have to mention when it comes to Kirumi, and why I liked her so much when I started V3. I already said that what I liked about her on a personal level when I started was that she was smart, she was serious, she was calm and collected, she was dignified, she had elegance and beauty, really soothing voice, all that stuff. But one thing that I don't think I ever mentioned to anyone is that the reason why I liked Kirumi that much at that point was because she reminded me a lot of Kyoko. I mean, think about it. All that stuff that I said about Kirumi right now, like almost all of them you can find in Kyoko too. And right now, I guess I'm over that sort of stuff. I'm over the badass, smart, good girl that is almost flawless. Treating them like goddesses, like popular high school girls and all that crap that I felt a while ago on a personal level. Now, what I'm searching for in a girl, or any character in general really, is for them to feel human to me. Relatable, good-hearted, but also a flawed human being, quirky, to make me laugh, smile, doesn't need to be smart, and someone that I can root for and know that they have the power to overcome their problems in the end. Like, that sort of stuff. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to set up the stage now. To you!